만나서 반가워요. 저는 콜린입니다. 나는 조금 긴장 있어요. Yeah. But I'm very pleased to be here. But before we go into the presentation, obviously now addressing you fellow coaches, and obviously a lot of people involved in the game of football and the women's game, we have a great opportunity to be working with young people, and also a big chance to help form these young girls maybe one day into elite players. So obviously we're looking at two aspects. We're looking at the amateur game, young girls just starting, coaches, you coaches working with young girls, and I'm coming from the elite football. But if you look at the elite footballers, and we'll just maybe mention Ji So-yun, who's obviously a world-class player, the question is, of course, where did she start? So when she's starting to play soccer, maybe with 8 or 9 or 10 years old, she's obviously not world-class. But these young girls that you're working with now, they could also be, in a few years' time, that elite player, or they could even become one day an elite coach. Or these young girls just remain playing soccer because they love the game and just play on an amateur level, but they're involved, they're helping, they're encouraging maybe other young girls to take up the sport. And I think that's a really important factor, that we try to build a foundation and that the sport can grow in popularity here in South Korea. Another aspect, of course, is the more girls that are playing soccer in South Korea, in general, obviously increases the chances of getting more elite players coming through the system one day. So now we maybe just go on to the one remark I would like to make for all of you coaches. And this is, I'm talking obviously subjectively, so it's my experience that I'm just giving to you. I'm not saying this is the way to do it, or you have to do it like this. This is just the experience that I've now gained during the last 31 years. So to increase the popularity and also to become, as far as I'm concerned, a good, successful coach. And successful not meaning you have to win cups and trophies, that's obviously nice. That's a product of working well, but success in that we increase the number of girls playing the sport, that the girls have enjoyment, that they stay in the sport much longer than maybe some of them do. And this is a subject for, not just for South Korea, but for all of the countries. As far as I'm concerned as a coach, the most important thing, or one of the most important things when I'm working with my players, and it doesn't matter which age group or which gender, you have to get into the hearts of the players as a coach. Is of course very important, and we try to increase our knowledge all the time as a coach. Coming to meetings like this, looking at different coaches, doing different qualifications, so we try to increase our knowledge all the time. But believe me, knowledge on its own will not benefit anybody. You as a coach, it won't benefit, and it won't benefit the players. I strongly believe that it's the emotional level that you have to reach with your players to become even more successful, meaning that they can, like say, become top players or better people, stay longer in the game, enjoy the game. And you benefit as a coach because you will be the role model for many of these young girls without even maybe knowing it. So we're looking, of course, how to increase the learn effect, and a lot of that is this emotional level, having fun, encouraging the players to actively learn. So we maybe just need to take the slide back to the pillars of success, John. Yeah, so I'll be referring to obviously some of the things that we're doing now with the national team that I do think you are able then to relate to the level that you're working at. So I like to encourage the players to take part actively when we are working on the pitch and when we're learning in the classroom. So as a coach, I think we just have to get the right balance. If I'm telling the players all the time what they have to do, they will switch off. They will not be able to learn. So we have to get the balance right, where we don't want to overcoach, but we don't want to undercoach. So we encourage that dialogue with the players, that they can also go looking for answers, and we can encourage and guide them on that journey. So I look at it from my point of view at, we call it 4 pillars of success. Communication, match intelligence, meaning understanding the game, the technique, and then the physical and mental fitness of each player. And I would also put them in that order. So communication, match intelligence, number 2, technique, number 3, and the physical and mental fitness, or the physical fitness maybe to highlight a little bit more, on number 4. But they're all important, they're all drastically important. The fitness is on position number 4, excuse me, because it's the easiest thing to influence. So if I was to work with you all for the next 6 weeks, every single day, I would make you top fit. So hands up, who wants to start? So the most difficult aspect of learning is the communication and the match intelligence, the actual understanding, decision making, and the execution of the decision. And this communication and understanding starts at a very early age. So we have different forms of communication. We have the verbal communication, something that I'm doing now. And then there's a non-verbal communication. That means movement, that means actions, that can be a gesture, that can be a smile, that can be a frown. That's when we're communicating with each other on a non-verbal level. So a football game, a football match, training, playing football is a complex thing because as soon as you start to play, you are communicating with your players on a verbal, non-verbal level. The players are communicating with each other on a verbal, non-verbal level. And also you have the opponents that are communicating with you normally then on a non-verbal level. The referee, the linesman or lineswoman. So you have many things are going on all at once during a football match. So a lot of the things, it comes down to experience. That doesn't mean to say now you have to play football for 50 years until you understand it, but you start with these young girls playing, training on a regular basis, and the more that they're involved in the actual game situations, the more their communication levels will rise, the more they will learn because they're identifying moments, situations, and they'll make mistakes. And this is maybe the point I need to make. We need to give them an environment, the players, young girls, an environment where they can make mistakes, where they can learn, where you can look for solutions together. So like I said, football is pretty complex, and players need to learn and understand that in this early age, and we as a coach can help and guide them. So if you just have one situation, obviously there's more situations, but you have one situation, maybe one player has the ball, a colleague of hers is now calling for the ball, running into space, another colleague of hers has moved, changed her position, but not said anything. So that's a non-verbal communication. The player that's calling for the ball and moving, a verbal communication with the player on the ball, and then the opponents are also moving, sending some kind of signal to the player on the ball or to the players that are trying to run free. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of information for that girl, that young girl in that moment. And she has to read all these signs verbally here, then read the sign of the movement of her colleagues, the movement of her opponents, and then based on that information, she has then to make a decision. So a question for you coaches, is that an easy situation? No, it's 어렵다. 네? 많이 어렵다. So that's why we have to, again, in game forms and the information, the dialogue that we share with our players, try to encourage them to have that experience, to try things that maybe not are correct, but through that learn effect, try again, that they can then read these kind of situations much faster. So we'll look at this in a little bit more detail in a couple of minutes. But this is, for example, a photo taken how the national team actually analysed our training, our last match, or our upcoming match and opponent. So I don't have a big group and I talk to them and tell them this is what you have to do, then you should have done this, and now you've got to do this. So I put them into smaller groups and we'll work on certain aspects, give them certain questions, and then we find the solutions together. Match intelligence, so that's now we have the communication, things are going on the pitch, the verbal, the non-verbal communication, and now the player has to read all that information and then make a decision make a decision and then execute that decision. And the complex thing about this, of course, is that you have a limited amount of time and you have only a certain amount of space on the pitch. So all these things that are going on mentally, cognitively, visually, they're happening in your game, whatever level you're coaching at, and they're also going to happen in my game at international level. So our job is, again, to encourage the players to be able to reach that learning level, to be able to read these situations much faster, and that their decision making then, through the experience that they've gained, through the mistakes that they've made in training, maybe of course also in the matches, that their decision making will improve, and that their execution then of the decision, taking in then the technique of the game, will also then improve. So if we involve the players in this process, what do you think will the effect be for these young girls? What effect will this have? Question, 질문. So I'm going to help you. We will create young, confident young women that are playing football with confidence, that are going to school with confidence, they're going to work with confidence, they're in society with confidence, because we can help them and encourage them to become critical thinkers, to take responsibility, not to be scared of mistakes, to learn. So all these aspects of the actual coaching and the learning method is also designed not just to make them better footballers and to keep them in the game, but also to encourage them to become strong personalities for life outside of the football. So 나는 필요해 선수들 많이 자신감. But it starts at an early age, and it can start at an early age. So if we just move on, what I don't want this morning to be is like too dry with me just talking, so we're trying to get through the slides as quickly as possible. Then we can show a few video clips, like the learning effect from training going into the games, and then I'd like to open everything up for a Q&A. So we use two methods of learning: inquiry-based learning and active learning. So the inquiry-based learning, as you can see, effective questioning on clips. So our questions have to be really good for our players to get that response, and we have to encourage them to be able to give a response. Developing critical thinkers, meaning again that the girls are being given that responsibility to think about what they're actually doing. Understanding their role and the responsibility on the pitch and off the pitch, and also then to encourage the reflection. So we analyze our own performance, analyze our training performance, analyze whatever it is. These aspects are very, very important. So the questioning, of course, is very, very important. Asking the right questions to get a response and encouraging that response. So we have to think about the way we plan our training. We have to think about the reasoning behind that training form, or what do we actually want to achieve, to be able to help the girls learn and improve. And like I said, we started off this morning saying that we want to introduce like fun, and we want to get more girls to participate. And it's so attractive. Girls want to come, they want to be part of it. And then with this kind of coaching, as far as I'm concerned, it becomes about, it really does become about the players. That's my way of coaching. The player is the most important aspect, not me. I'm there to help and to assist and to facilitate. The player is the most important person in all of this. So the active learning, of course, is on the pitch itself, when we maybe just stop to correct a certain situation. Again, bringing the players into the questioning, trying to find the solution together. You don't obviously have 10 minutes to find this solution. It's a short space of time. It could be up to a minute, but you just get some feedback from the players. And the learning effect, of course, is that they will remember easier, and they will remember longer and understand actually what they've learned much longer, increasing the effect then of becoming a better player. Like I said earlier, then when we're actually analyzing our training, and I obviously don't know how you coaches set up your training. Is it possible to film the girls? But with this, in this day and age, with all the technical things that we have, should be a tool that can be used. It's possible. But going now to the elite football, when we're working with the elite players, like I said earlier, we'll sit them down in smaller groups of 4 or maybe even in pairs. They receive a clip or 2 clips. They get 1 or 2 questions, and they have to then find, as a group or as a pair, the answers. And our coaching staff and myself, we'll go around, encourage, get some kind of response, listen to what they're saying. And then when they're finished with their analysis, one of the players then has to stand up in front of all of the other players and present their solution. So the first time I introduced this method was in our first camp when we went to Paju. Even some of my immediate staff said, "Oh, Colin, not sure if that's the right thing to do with these players because they're not used to it." So I said, "I want confident girls, and this will help them." So on that day, the first player, and actually always remember the first player that actually stood up to present was Hong Heiji. So Heiji, one of our younger players, and her presentation was fantastic. And with that confidence, we want to see players like Heiji and obviously all of the players playing on the pitch with that kind of confidence, but also to develop that critical thinking, because in this process, we can ask questions. So I can also ask the player that's presented or the group that's presented questions. And they will then have to enforce or reinforce their solution. So it's the same really with every belief system, that you have to have plausible and logical reasons why you believe a certain thing. And this is also in football. If this is the right solution, why is it the right solution? Could there be another solution? And so if you can defend that with good arguments and plausible logic, then that increases again the confidence and the ability of learning. So again, questioning, helping, encouraging. But I think also in life, one of the most important questions is the question why. Where? Where this, where that, where? And we should encourage the players to be asking these kind of questions, and then or this question, and then we find the solution then together. Because, just before John, we said we want to encourage players to come to the game, to enjoy the game, to stay in the game. But they could also ask the question, why should I? Why should I play football? But if the player has that love for the game and we can increase that love and the knowledge of the game, they will stay by it, they will stick with it. So again, it's about the actual communication that we have with our players, the environment that we can create with our players and for our players that increases that enjoyment level. They feel safe, they want to come and want to participate. So we just want to flick through these now we come with the communication, the understanding, the information that we have. Now we have to make a decision based on that information. Now we need to execute the decision. Now we go on to the technique quickly. So the better the technique, that's obviously going to help us when we've made the decision to actually execute the decision. So we've got things there that you all know. The passing, receiving, dribbling, crossing, shooting, heading. I don't think I need to go through that. All these aspects for the technique that we need to improve and work on in our training sessions. So we can create so many training situations, training forms, exercises that implement all these elements of the technique, plus obviously the game form, the communication, the decision making, execution of the decision. That's why game forms, small-sided games are so important, that we try to really focus on the things that we're doing with the ball, but obviously there will be an aspect that the player needs to learn without the ball. So far I've experienced with my national team players that have an excellent technique. But if you look, and this is the experience that I've had the last few years, I honestly believe in South Korea that we have the ability and the chance to become a really top nation in the women's game. The players that I've been working with have good technique, but we don't yet have the confidence, the Jashingam of Japan. I think that's an important area. That's where we can really improve, having that self-belief and that confidence. Yeah, we played Japan in December and we lost 1-0 through a penalty just before the end of the game. We'll see the goal in a minute. I was really disappointed. I was quite annoyed as well. I wasn't annoyed at the performance. I was annoyed because we lost and because I thought the girls didn't really believe to 100% that they should be beating Japan. So I said to the players, I've seen what you can do in training, I've seen what you can do in the previous matches. I expected us to be E1 champions. I expected us to beat Japan. So the response from the players was maybe a non-verbal communication. Nun? Colin? Cincha? Colin? Ne? Cincha? I expect to win. I expect to beat Japan. And next time we will. But first we have to beat China. Okay, so we just go on quickly. So to the things, the technique without the ball. So again, things that you know that we have to work on that again evolve and can be trained naturally in that game environment. Running into space, squeezing, pressure, marking, covering, all the aspects that you know that are involved in your game, in my game, every football match. So we have 2 more slides to show before we watch the video. So again, this is something that incorporates what we've already spoken about, the football fitness, meaning fit, obviously physically, but also mentally, more the mental side of it, where you can see, again, the communication, the decision, the execution of the decision on and off the ball. So that's in a little symbol for you that maybe you can use. So if we just go on to the last slide of the presentation. No, yeah, that one. So this is, again, this is just a small overview. This we could go into more detail, but we're not going to do that this morning. But these aspects of the game apply to every single football match. So if I just pick out a couple, we want to encourage the players to coach each other. We anticipate, we do not speculate. We look to win every personal 1v1. So we are able to play different systems. We want to search and find the right solution in pressure situations. We remain active, we want to shape the game, and we want the ball. So again, I come back to that Jashingam. I want to encourage my football team, my South Korean national team, to dominate matches, meaning we want the ball. Of course, there'll be situations that we can dominate when we don't have the ball, but we want to have that confidence that we can dominate, that we can perform and win against every single team on this planet. And we can encourage that at an early age, to be confident on the ball, to have a good technique, to want the ball, to want to play, to be active, to remain active. When I analyze the South Korean team, again, maybe during the World Cup, because I don't want to criticize or anything like that, but I had that feeling that the girls were not active enough. So just to finish off the presentation, we just want to show a few clips from training, from animation, how we help the girls learn. And of course, with the language barrier still being there, the visualization of our training and using animations to project that to the girls before we go onto the pitch has been a very, very helpful and useful tool. So again, if you just remember, we're looking at the communication, the understanding of the situation, the decision that players make, the execution of those decisions, and in various areas, and then the transfer, the learning effect from training, when it maybe go wrong in training, but then the learning effect that we then had or have in the game. But the first clip that we will show, we obviously analyze that. That would be something for you coaches to take and to analyze this yourselves and to find out with the players then the solutions. What happened? Why did we make these decisions? What was the reasoning behind this? So that's the thought behind these sequences now in the video. Okay? So we'll just let it run. And like I said, I'll give a little bit of commentary. So this was the game against Japan. This is like in the 88th minute. It's 0-0. So we might have to show it again. You can take it back quickly before the penalty. So again, you can see the communication was poor. the decision making. We're not responding to each other as we would have hoped. We have the pressure, the non-verbal communication from Japan, pressurizing us. So again, we watch it again. This would be for the girls now to analyze. So again, it's just reacting, making a wrong decision or quite a few wrong decisions within this short space of time. Again, you can look at the time of the game. It's late, the girls are tired. When you get tired, you're liable to make more mistakes, or mistakes creep in a little bit easier. Okay, so we can just move it on. Next. So again, we're just looking at situations and we can set up in training. I'm not saying you need to do this or do it like this, but if you can just see now we're looking then for ball circulation, positioning of the players in the training animation. The 7 goals to attack and 7 goals to defend in a 6v6 or a 5v5 or whatever. Just keep it running. So again, basically just showing the animation that you can use these tools to introduce maybe before the training session. So this would be the training situation now, the animation, then we go into the training session. Again, looking to all the aspects, decision making, communication, movement, reacting to each other, finding angles, finding space. At times I might join in, so I'm involved, so I get a better... So we've gone from the animation now into the actual live version of the training form, and now we want to watch it in the game. So now we have the game situation, again that transfer from training into the game situation. Again, quick reaction, moving the opponent through the passing, getting our angles right to each other, trying to find space. So you see there that the reaction, well, first of all, the decision is made to shoot. The opening is there. So again, reacting to the non-verbal communication that the opponents have given. And again, a good position, a good ball. So now stop. Can we stop the video? So now again, John Unha, she's going to shoot. And you can see in the center, Kang Cherim. So there's no verbal communication, but Cherim is now watching the game and watching the decision that John Unha is going to make, and obviously then seeing what's going to happen with the goalkeeper. So she's maybe just anticipating now that the goalkeeper is not going to save this shot. So now she has to make that decision to shoot. Then we see the central player following the ball in, the ball's in the net. So again, another training clip where we're trying to break defensive lines. Again, a complex exercise for the players. Communication again, recognizing where you are on the pitch. That was more of a negative example, but just let it run, don't stop it. Don't stop. Again, positioning, we've got to move the ball quicker, got to move the opponents quicker at times. Where we change the tact of the game, now that ball's open. And if you just look at the detail on playing on the back foot instead of the front foot, that we can take the ball forward. So little details where you can coach and ask the players to reflect and get a quick response from them. You see there, we slow it down. We play on the front foot, the right foot, instead of playing the ball to the left foot. And you see this, when she actually scores now, again, it's the same position, but a different pass. There it is. Take the ball forward into the space, goal. Training. Okay, this is a little move without opponents, something I do occasionally, using this kind of unopposed form just to get an idea into their head, but obviously we need to have opponents in there normally. But the idea, first of all, is the seed is sown of the idea. So again, we had breaking lines. We want to look for that space in behind if possible. So the theory was, I started to ask a few questions again. Where and you're shooting? And some of the answers were, because when we were younger, we used to shoot and maybe shoot past the goal and we get shouted at. So the confidence levels would sink. And obviously we need the players to grow in their confidence level. So I hope this morning that the point came through, that we're focusing on that communication, that understanding, the decision making. And it's all in the game of football. And the more that the girls understand, the more they enjoy, the more they participate, because they're actively participating. I think we can increase the chances then of getting more girls to play, and obviously for me then as elite coach to get more players coming through. So thank you very much for listening, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them. 감사합니다.